Well, I'm finally doing it. This is a video that I hinted at doing in a previous video and I'm now finally doing. It's about time. And unfortunately, it's not the Danny Phantom Season 3 video. Yeah, sorry to disappoint, but that video is still in the back burner. This is another video that I hinted at doing in an earlier video. In honor of Canada Day, I figured it was time to tell you about some more underrated media from the land of Tim Hortons, maple syrup, curling, and William Shatner, eh? As I mentioned in my review of the obscure Canadian kids cartoon King from last year, and as you can see from the title, I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite Canadian songs that Americans, and non-Canadians in general, have never heard. Before I actually talk about these songs, I should probably get some clarification on what I mean by Canadian songs. In my King review, I briefly talked about CanCall laws and about how Canadian radio and television stations must meet a certain threshold of Canadian content broadcast. These laws are the reason why Canada has produced so many kids cartoons, including many that Americans have never heard of, like the aforementioned King. I also mentioned that there are various rules in place as to what constitutes music or television as Canadian. I didn't go into detail about that because it wasn't the focus of the video, but when it comes to music, the rule for determining the Canadianness of music is called the Maple System. Yes, Maple, Canada, haha, that wasn't a coincidence. Anyway, the Maple System takes a look at a song's music, artist, performance, and lyrics. The music must be composed by a Canadian, the artists themselves must be Canadian, the song must be performed entirely in Canada, and the lyrics must be written by a Canadian. If at least two of these criteria are met, the song indeed qualifies as Canadian. Although it should be known there are a few extra cases to accommodate certain artists or songs. Many Canadian artists with international careers like Drake, Justin Bieber, or The Weeknd no longer qualify as Canadian under the Maple System, due to the fact that they write their songs with American songwriters and producers and often record in the USA or Europe. Other Canadian artists like Celine Dion or Avril Lavigne do continue to record in Canada to maintain their CanCon status. So for this list, I'm putting in place 3 rules. Number 1. The song must qualify as Canadian under the Maple System. I just mentioned about Drake, Justin Bieber, and The Weeknd, and how most, if not all, their music doesn't even qualify as Canadian under the Maple System. So, even though those 3 guys are from Canada, they're all disqualified on this list. And anyway, most of their discography is well known by most English-speaking pop music fans, so there'd really be no point putting any of their songs on this list. Number 2. The song cannot have been a hit outside of Canada and cannot chart at all on the US Billboard Hot 100. Like I said before, this list is specifically for Canadian songs that Americans have never heard. In addition to those 3 guys I mentioned before, other Canadian artists with international careers that do still maintain their CanCon stats for most of their music, like Bryan Adams, Shania Twain, and Avril Lavigne, won't be making this list either. In addition, songs like Call Me Maybe by Carly Rae Jepsen, Rude by Magic, and Body by Loud Luxury featuring Brando are also disqualified from this list. Even though those 3 songs do qualify as Canadian under the Maple System, since they were all worldwide hits and all charted in the USA, they don't count for this list. This also means that a few songs were borderline, like Alone Again by Alyssa Reed, Closer by Tegan and Sara, and The Bell by Deadmau5 featuring Chris James are also disqualified. Those songs would have all made this list if not for this rule. Again, I want to introduce Americans to some Canadian songs, so if it was a hit outside of Canada or chart on the US Hot 100, it's not eligible. Finally, number 3. Only 1 song per artist. This list could hypothetically be made up of songs by only 4 or 5 artists, but I want to give a little more attention to some other Canadian artists too. I'd recommend, however, that you seek out some other songs by the artists I mentioned besides the ones I talk about in this video. These artists do have plenty of great songs, but I can only place 1 from each on this list. There was some stiff competition for a couple of these artists with picking only 1 song of theirs to put here. And those are the 3 rules. Oh, one more thing before I begin. All the songs I'm talking about are pop songs from the last 15 years. The earliest song on this list is from 2007. The late 2000s to the 2010s was when I really started listening to Canadian pop stations and heard most of these songs, so that explains the genre and time period from which these songs are from. Plus, the Canadian Hot 100 didn't even launch until mid-2007. There were various Canadian singles charts before then that list the most popular Canadian singles each week, but they were distributed by Billboard. That's not to say there aren't any great Canadian 80s or 90s songs, or Canadian rock bands, or Canadian indie artists. I'm just sticking with what I already know I like for this list. All the songs on this list are songs that I truly do enjoy and would recommend you all check out. I also knew I couldn't just have this be a 10 entry list, so I ended up choosing 20 songs for this list. Of course, there's plenty more great Canadian songs than that, I just didn't want this video to be too long. Alright, I've rambled enough. Let's dive in going in alphabetical order by song title. First on the docket, so, kicking this list off, we get a song from a guy who's actually from the Canadian city I lived for 12 years. Coleman Hell's an indie pop artist from Thunder Bay, Ontario, otherwise known as the place where Terry Fox stopped running, and the place where I actually lived from 2009 to 2021. And you know, it's almost poetic that the song is by guys from the place I lived in while it was popular, since there's something about it that feels, for lack of a better word, homegrown, native as it were. It has an almost bluegrass sound to it with that banjo melody, and even Coleman Hell's raspy tone almost sounds like a blues singer. Maybe he and Bob Wire should collaborate. And you know, there's also something sentimental about a song about falling in love too quickly with someone, with Coleman Hell even acknowledging that they got caught up in the moment, and that his potential partner should call him in the morning before they do anything they regret. And I gotta say, I don't think I've ever heard someone describe their Rush relationship as a monster with two heads. There's something honest about the song, with the guy not wanting their relationship to go too fast despite how much he loves a girl. And even though the lyrics are a bit repetitive with a single verse and no unique lyrics after the first 80 seconds, for a little ditty that's trying to lean to more of a folk sound, I think it's fine. This song was also one of the two on this list that was close to actually charting in the US. It peaked at number 11 on the US Hot Rock and Alternative Songs chart and number 8 on the US Rock Airplay chart because, yeah, this is what qualifies as rock in 2015. It was also Coleman Hell's highest charting song in his home country, peaking number 15 on the Canadian Hot 100. I'm certainly glad I could give some praise to a hometown celebrity, even if I wasn't born in Thunder Bay myself. Check it out. Just a little footnote. The fact that it's a song that Americans have never heard doesn't mean it's by an artist that Americans have never heard of. I mention this because I know there are some Americans who have heard of Deborah Cox. She's an R&B singer from Toronto who actually had some moderate success outside of her home country in the mid to late 90s. You probably know her best from her 1998 song Nobody's Supposed to Be Here, which actually went platinum in the States and hit number 2 in the Billboard Hot 100. Unfortunately, after the turn of the millennium, she fizzled out and never had another hit again, not even her home country. That was until 2008, when she put out Beautiful You Are, which managed to be her final hit and final charting song, peaking number 10 on the Canadian Hot 100 and number 39 on the 2009 Canadian year-end Hot 100 list. Now, I'll admit that on its face, the song isn't really anything too special. It's an R&B song about self-esteem with many of the lyrical cliches you'd expect a song like this to have. Holding on to what's inside, looking in the mirror, seeing the light in the distance, etc. Despite its cliches though, I think the song pulls off the message pretty well. It certainly helps that Deborah Cox was pretty seamlessly of a sort of R&B self-esteem anthem. It reminds me a bit of Alicia Keys' No One, which came out a year before. In fact, if this song had been given to Alicia Keys or some other popular female R&B singer at the time, this song could have been a hit in the States. The male voice going, what, interspersed with the song reminds me of the song is from 2008, a full decade after Nobody's Supposed to Be Here. And just like her biggest hit, it manages to strike the perfect balance of not being super slow and boring, but at the same time not sounding too fast and upbeat. And for Deborah Cox's final charting song Anywhere, I think it was a good one to go out on. Beautiful it is. And here's another song that I think could have been a hit in the US if it had been given to an American artist. Brand New B-Word, or Brand New Chick, which is a clean version of play on the radio here, is a song that feels straight out of the early 2010s club boom. It's a fun little piece of 2011 dance pop that reminds me a lot of the music that you'd hear from Kesha or David Guetta or the Black Eyed Peas at the time. I could really see some early 2010s pop lists really latching onto this, which makes me all the more disappointed the song was only popular here in Canada. It peaked at number 16 on the Canadian Hot 100 and became Angelique's highest charting song, not just in Canada but anywhere in the world. The melody is catchy, the production is upbeat and fits like a glove during the early 2010s club boom, and the lyrics about feeling independent, doing just fine your own after an intimate relationship, and becoming a brand new person as it were, also puts it right back in 2011. While I might be tempted to say the song is outdated now since it's been 10 years since the club boom died down, I think the song does what it's set to do just fine. This is definitely a song that you can dance along to in the club. It is nice to have the little time capsule of the club boom with early 2010s. It's crazy to think it's over 10 years old now. Again, I would have loved to see the song be a hit in the States, and it's a shame that as the club boom fizzled out, Angelique did too. I mean, to be fair, her follow-up single Stand Behind the Music wasn't nearly as good, and she's never managed to get another charting song since 2012, despite releasing plenty of new singles since 2015. Still though, the one song of hers that did do well was pretty darn good all things considered. When this song comes on, I'm turning up the beat so sick. I'll be cautious. Now, this is an artist whom I actually had a difficult time deciding which song of his I'd include for this list. Tyler Shaw's made a ton of great songs. House of Cards, Wicked, With You, North Star, Be Like You, and more. Of course, I knew I could only pick one song of his for this list. In the end, it came out to either Kiss Goodnight or this song, Cautious. Now, Kiss Goodnight was an upbeat pop song about staying up all night with your partner, knowing that you have to leave in the morning. Cautious, however, has a very different tone to it. It was the lead single from Tyler's second album, Intuition, a much more intimate and less poppy album than his debut album, Yesterday. Personally, I think Cautious was the perfect song to pick as a lead-off single. The song's lyrics about being cautious about a partner who plays it rough but that you're drawn to despite their reputation gives the song a sense of danger. You should know better and you tread slowly, but like a moth to a flame, you just can't resist wanting to make love to them. Additionally, the production with its haunting melody, airy atmosphere, and plucking guitar strings will only help to elevate the feeling of mystery and wariness. It definitely keeps the listener on edge, as they can see this might not end well, but the song's protagonist is still sucked in regardless. I'm definitely a sucker for love songs with a sense of drama or danger present. It definitely feels like a more grown-up song than the songs from yesterday. That's not to say any of the songs from yesterday were bad, but I feel like Cautious is just more, for lack of a better word, mature. And, well, given that Tyler Shaw's now both a husband and a father, it definitely felt time for him to grow up. Fantastic song from a great Canadian artist, and don't be cautious to check out some of his other songs too. If it wasn't for my one song per artist rule, I could have easily put at least 3 more songs by Tyler Shaw on this list. Check them out.
Just don't kill the magic.
Okay, so I said that Rude wasn't eligible for this list because it was a hit around the world in 2014 and even #1 on the US Hot 100. But since none of Magic's other singles charted very well anywhere outside of Canada, the title track from their debut album and their follow-up single to Rude was eligible for this list. Like I said in my King review, Magic wasn't a one-hit wonder band here in Canada. They had a few more songs on Canadian radio and the Canadian Hot 100 after Rude. To be honest, I think Don't Kill the Magic is even better than Rude. It's a song where frontman Nasri Atra tries to salvage a relationship that seems to be at its end, saying that he'll give the girl space, change, love, and whatever else she wants, so long as she doesn't kill the magic of their relationship. It very much sounds like he's on his knees, willing to do whatever it takes to keep the magic alive. It feels honest, and I can definitely respect that. I know some people didn't like Rude, particularly for the lyrical content. After all, saying you're gonna marry the girl of your dreams anyway, even after the father tells you no, and calling him rude and saying that you're human too, does come off as entitled. But Don't Kill the Magic, it feels a lot more selfless, as he will do whatever it takes to keep the girl happy and isn't just doing this for himself. I honestly don't know why this song didn't really catch on outside of Canada. The only other place it charted was in Australia, number 53. I think this was a great follow-up to Rude and could have won over some people who weren't that wowed by Magic off their debut single. Of course, this wouldn't be the only time a reggae-infused song hit #1 in the USA, but the follow-up single didn't chart on the Hot 100 at all, but did do moderately well in Canada. How many of you have heard Omi's follow-up to Cheerleader, Hula Hoop? That song number 19 on the Canadian Hot 100, but only got the bubbling under Hot 100 in the USA. And just like Omi, Magic has faded away even here in Canada, and are often labeled as a one-hit wonder despite having at least one other charting song. Despite not being the single of his that got the most popular though, Don't Kill the Magic does have something magical to it. If you want magic, you can have it. One thing I really love is when musicians are capable of making music that can be poppy meant for mainstream radio, and also music that sounds more, for lack of a better word, artistic. Something that earns a little more credibility with music critics and isn't necessarily meant for pop listeners. Well, if you want a band that can do both and even strike the perfect balance of the two, look no further than Marianas Trench. These guys are certainly no stranger to making pop songs. Frontman Josh Ramsey has actually worked with quite a few Canadian pop artists throughout his career. He actually co-wrote and produced Call Me Maybe. I bet you didn't know that. With the rest of his band, they made multiple concept albums. Albums with an overall theme where each track transitions into the next, despite also working in standalone tracks and having almost theatricality to them with their more symphonic rock sound. Plus, unlike a lot of other mainstream bands, they don't rely on drum machines or electronic processing. Despite that, their catchy hooks and upbeat melodies manage to make the music still familiar enough to get played on pop radio in Canada. And oh man, there were so many songs by Marianas Trench I could have picked for this list. All to Myself, Celebrity Status, Haven't Had Enough, Desperate Measures, One Love, even Pop 101, a song that satirizes pop music. The one song of theirs, however, that I think best encapsulates just how great of a band they are is Fallout. A great sense of pop rock and symphonic rock that manages to sound lively and theatrical, but at the same time still be something pop listeners will love. The strings, heavy drums, and guitars really make it sound like it's a song straight out of a musical, which only fits better with it being a track on a concert album with each track leading into the next. It also helps that Josh Ramsey is a damn expressive singer. As it's a song about feeling the pain of your ex being with someone else now, he really manages to sell his performance. He can make a simple bubblegum pop song like Call Me Maybe, but he can also make a song like this, and that's really what makes Marianas Trench so fantastic. Being able to go from making simple pop songs to big theatrical songs and back again is an amazing feat and one that not many artists can accomplish. Heck, I'd even say they pulled it up better here than AJR when they tried to do something similar for one of their albums. It's a song that sounds perfect both on stage and on pop radio. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Just like Beautiful You Are, we got another Canadian R&B song released in late 2008 that I remember hearing on the radio in 2009. Around 2008-2009, there seemed to be a bunch of male R&B artists coming onto the scene. In addition to guys like Neo, Akon, and Chris Brown who were already popular before this time putting out new music of their own, you also had a string of new male R&B artists popping up. Jason Derulo, Trey Songz, Colby O'Donis, Iyaz, Jay Sean, and more. Well, Canada was no stranger to this male R&B artist boom of the time, as Danny Fernandez ended up gracing Canadian radio stations with a few singles of his own from his debut album Intro. The one song of his that I remember best was the third single from Intro, Fantasy, A nice little sense of pop and R&B where Dani Fernandez sings about giving a girl whatever she wants. That means a candlelit dinner, taking her trips around the world, and on a shopping spree. Anything to make him her fantasy. While maybe not too impressive lyrically, it's still pleasant listen and feels right at home with the R&B that you hear around this time. This is another song that you can also argue hasn't really aged the best, especially with some of the light electronic elements in the production. I don't really mind it though. Plus, I like how the production has an almost dreamy quality to it, which fits with the lines, "I know you dream me every time you fall asleep," and "when you think of me, just close your eyes and dream" in the chorus. One thing's for certain, this song isn't a fantasy, it's real. A really great song from up north that you should give a listen to.
So hold back your tears this time.
Of all the artists on this list, Hedley is probably the one with the biggest amount of success here in Canada. They were a pretty popular song, amassing 9 top 10 songs on the Canadian Hot 100. I even happen to own 2 of their albums on CD. Although they do get some flack, and not just because frontman Jacob Hoger was outed for sexual assault in 2018, causing the band to go on indefinite hiatus, and later being found guilty this year in 2022. Kind of like Maroon 5, they got some criticism for supposedly selling out, due to the fact they started off as more of a pop rock band, but eventually evolved into making full-on pop music. Now, I'll admit, I actually like most of the songs from Hedley's pop era. I could have put Kiss You Inside Out, or Crazy For You, or Invincible, or Hello, or even Cha-Ching in this spot. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about their pre-sellout days. It was probably their fan favorite song, For the Nights I Can't Remember. And yeah, I can definitely see why fans say this is Hedley's best song. The build-up to the crescendo was great, the piano-driven instrumental restraints from sounding too rock-heavy while at the same time still give you that great power ballad sound, the love-struck lyrics about begging your ex to forgive you after all the time you spent gone do feel sincere, and the 6 time keeps you falling into the typical pop formula. Like I said, I do genuinely enjoy a lot of Hedley's music from their pop era, but even I won't deny they're really sticking to a pop formula and mostly playing it safe after 2012 or so. With that in mind, the fact that one of their biggest hits mentioned sounds so different really makes it stand out even more. Honestly, you could probably give the song to an 80s power ballad band and you'd probably hold up even against all those. Even though this is an original song, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's a cover of a deep cut from Heart or Air Supply. Honestly, I could do a whole nother video about Hedley and their music, because I just found them to be a really interesting band to talk about. And while I wouldn't say this is my favorite Hedley song, even their pre-pop era, I'm certainly glad we got it regardless. If falling for this song is crazy, then I'm going out of my mind.
Nobody stop it. Everybody move, get up and dance, move your body.
Here's another song on this list that's also arguably a product of its time. Get Up and Dance, and by the way, it's not Get Up and Dance, it's Get Up and Dance. It's a song by Canadian pop-punk band Faber Drive, and the lead single from their second studio album, Can't Keep a Secret. The song goes for a much more electronic sound than that of their first album, with a synths, upbeat melody, and lyrics about simply partying in the club. Is it selling out? I mean, probably, but hey, it worked. It became their highest charting song and their only top 10 song in Canada, peaking number 6 on the Canadian Hot 100. And I don't really care what their intentions were money-wise here because, just like a number of other songs on this list, it's just an enjoyable listen. It's a song that you're just supposed to, as the title says, get up and dance to in the club and not really care. It's tons of fun and I love the hell out of it. This brand of pop punk and synth pop really does feel like something you hear on the radio or the club in 2009. In fact, this exact flavor of pop punk combined with club beer synth pop reminds me a lot of 303. Yeah, remember 303? If this song had been given the right promotion or the proper push down south, I could have definitely seen this being a hit in the States too. If it's right in with the rest of the club scene, which was really blowing up around this time thanks to artists like the Black Eyed Peas, Kesha, and Lady Gaga. Is it disposable? Sure, but I don't really care. It's just a fun get out of your seat and dance track that isn't meant to be high or super complex. There's absolutely a place for these kinds of songs, and this song is just an example of one of them. When you hear this song, you'll want to get up and dance.
You act like you do, so goes. I watch you getting way too close.
Here we have yet another Canadian artist who did actually manage to chart on the American Hot 100. Fifi Dobson's 2003 single Take Me Away was her only charting song down south, peaking number 87 in the Hot 100, pretty much beginning and ending her American popularity. Suffice to say, in 2003, Avril Lavigne's Simple Plan was one of her popular Canadian artists in America. I guess King wasn't the only Canadian media released in 2003 that never caught on the States, but of course, in her home country, Fifi Dobson had a lot more than just one charting song. Ghost was the lead single from her second studio album Joy, and while the follow-up single Stuttering did manage to outpeak and even reach the top 10 of the Canadian Hot 100, I think Ghost is actually the better song. It's a song where Fifi Dobson catches her partner cheating on her and angrily confronts him about it. I really like how sly Fifi Dobson sounds in that pre-chorus, and how she just explodes on the chorus, telling them off for getting too close to their girl, and finally connects the dots, realizing why they've never been there. She can really pull off the emotion of anger here. It's only matched by those guitars in the chorus, giving the song more of a rock edge. The anger here is definitely earned because cheating on your partner is an absolutely scummy thing to do, and this person deserves all the wrath Fifi Dobson is giving them. It reminds me a lot of IDJF by Dua Lipa or Ciao Adios by Anne Marie, both in lyrical content and the song's key. Speaking of which, the minor key manages to make the song sound more haunting, which is fitting for a song titled Ghost. Fifi Dobson also mentions to spice her song up even more by using ghost metaphors, like how her cheating partner looks like they just saw a ghost when she caught them, and how she's gonna haunt them in every dream and make them feel miserable for what they did, and how now it's her turn to disappear. The emotions are earned, they're portrayed tremendously through both the lyrics and Fifi Dobson's singing. Any person who cheats on their girlfriend deserves to be haunted in every dream and have their girlfriend disappear from their life for good. Fantastic song, and a perfect way to put a scummy cheater in place. You can even say it's boo-tiful.
Just let me in. Just let me in. Hey, let's go back in time for the night and just really.
So, we're halfway through the list now, and this is the artist I'm talking about today that I'm probably the most disappointed isn't popular outside of Canada. Dan Telefsky is a pop singer-songwriter from Georgetown, Ontario, who originally got to start doing covers of songs on YouTube over a decade ago. Many of his covers from then have over 1 million views. It wasn't until 2015, though, that he snagged a record deal with E1 Music Canada, and began releasing original, professionally produced music. Just like with Tyler Shaw and Mariana's Trench, Dan Telefsky is another artist who actually had multiple competing songs of his to make this list. Knock Me Off My Feet, Rocket, The Wire, Touch the Sky, Too Close with Rhea May, Detonate, and more. The song I ultimately chose for this list was his debut single and highest charting song, Guilty as Sin. Telefsky's vocal timbre and smooth falsetto almost sounds akin to an R&B singer, which is perfect for this kind of hookup jam. He almost sounds like Justin Timberlake. The acoustic guitar, crisp horns, and atmospheric sound really emphasizes the enticing tone. It's definitely a song that manages to sound sexy, as if it's a song for the bedroom as a couple is ready to make love. Like with Cautious, it has an underlying feeling of knowing that it's a bad idea, but you're just sucked into it anyway, except without the feeling of danger. Lyrics like, "It's a crime we commit when my hands are touching your body," or "God cannot help us now," or "I'ma take your innocence tonight," and even the song's title being Guilty as Sin establishes that it might be sinful or lustful, but hot damn, they just can't help but make love anyway. Thankfully, it doesn't sound forcible or coercive. Plus, when the groove is this slick, the production is this crisp, and the vocal performance is this heavenly, I really can't complain. This song is a prime example of what Dan Telefsky is capable of musically. It really is a shame that Dan Telefsky isn't a very popular artist. Even in Canada, his popularity has been pretty limited. Only 3 of his singles have ever charted on the Canadian Hot 100, and none of them reached the top 50. The fact that E1 Music Canada is an independent record label is probably part of the reason for that. Still though, he's been releasing this one new single a year ever since 2015, most of which are really good. This is yet another artist who is stunted by my one song per artist rule. Go listen to his music. It'd be a crime you commit if you don't.
Jealous, but I'm too cool to admit it. When the fellas talk to my girl, I ain't with it.
Okay, I'm cheating with Rule 2 a little bit on this song. I said that a song wasn't eligible for this list if it was a hit outside of Canada, and technically, this song was a hit in Hungary, landing number 41 on that country's 2014 year-end chart. It was also a top 5 hit in Belgium. That being said though, given the relative obscurity of those charts and the fact there wouldn't be any justice if the song wasn't on the list, I decided to fudge the rules a little bit on this one. Jealous I Ain't With It by the duo Chromeo was an absolute shooting for this list from the very beginning. If I could describe this song in one word, it would be funky. It's easily the song on this list that sounds the most throwbackish with the 80s sounding synth, what almost sounds like a chiptune in the post-chorus, and the electric guitar solo on the bridge. You'd be forgiven for thinking the song came out during the 80s, but no, it came out in 2014. It's something that sounds almost classy in a way, which actually perfectly fits the lyrics about being too cool to admit that you're jealous of your girl hanging with other guys. You're afraid that your girl won't stay loyal to you, but you want to keep her cool and not let show that you're feeling nervous. It's just the kind of song that makes you want to don a pair of sunglasses and bob your head to it. It also seems that I'm not the only Canadian who adores this song. It was actually used in a couple of Canadian commercials, including one for Wear OS by Google, then known as Android Wear.
Okay, Google, open garage.
While I'm glad this song was popular in a couple of European countries, I wish more Americans would have heard it. I bet they'd feel jealous of us if this song was a top 20 hit in Canada. I'm not too cool to admit that I love this song.
We gotta give it a jump start. 5, 3, 2, 1, go. What's up? When we get it going, no way we're gonna stop.
And this is another band whose album I actually happen to own, and another title track from a debut studio album. This time, we got Jumpstart by electropop/pop rock band These Kids Wear Crowns, and man is that a fitting title because this is one energizing song. I'll admit that lyrically, there really isn't much to this song. It's basically just a song about getting up off the ground, dancing, and feeling the adrenaline to not feel so down the dumps of being broke. And apparently they're so into dancing that they're doing it to the point where their legs go into shock as described in the chorus. Add in those pop rock guitars, a bit of vocal processing to make the song not sound out of place in 2011, and the millennial whoops to match, and you got one fun piece of dance pop and pop rock that can really jumpstart a person. If you don't feel like dancing while listening to this, there's something wrong with you. To be honest, this is a song I don't really have much to say about beyond it's fun and energizing. I will admit this is one of the weaker songs on this list, but it's not saying it's bad by any stretch, because it's not. These kids aren't the only thing wearing crowns. This song wears one too. It's a king of 2011 danceable pop rock songs. Sorry, Hot Shell Race Tonight. Come to think of it, I wonder if any of these kids wearing crowns were kings of Under. They ought to be kings of something for giving us this awesome song. Go listen to it.
Let's play. I'll let you wrestle me. You can win all day.
This is probably the song on this list that you could say is the most poppy, for the lack of a better word. A catchy upbeat song with lyrics about making love? Yeah, this is definitely a standard pop song. But you know what? I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing here. While I'll admit that Christina Maria's voice isn't really all that distinctive compared to a lot of other female pop stars, I think that with lyrics and catchiness really elevate it. It's a song that, similar to Cautious, seems to have a little more subtext beneath the surface. But unlike Cautious, the song comes out as a lot more playful, no pun intended, being about two people making love. And if you think about the lyrics for more than a few seconds, you realize just how dirty they are. Lyrics like, I'll let you wrestle me, you can win all day, or I can show you all the toys that you might like, or baby, if I tie you up, it don't mean I tie you down. I just like to play rough, baby. Really show this isn't just about a couple hanging out together. Then of course there's a line, if you want to bring a friend, it's more than welcome to join in. We'll have triple times the fun. Whoa now, she referencing a menage a trois? And it's quite a coincidence that this song became popular in 2011, the same year as Katy Perry's Last Friday Night TGIF, a song that directly mentions the menage a trois. At the same time though, the indie winners aren't so blatant that the song couldn't be played on pop radio. And given that the song was played on Canadian radio enough to reach number 19 on the Canadian Hot 100 mid-2011, it seems it just managed to skirt by. Besides, I don't blame anyone not paying that much attention to the lyrics because it's catchy as sin. It's definitely the song on this list with the poppiest sound to it, and sometimes having a simple pop song is just fine. Not sure if I can call it a sugary pop song given, the lyrics, but the flavor it does have is definitely one that I enjoy. This song, it's my flavor, it's my type.
They say no way. I say I'm all the world.
And here's another Canadian artist whom a handful of non-Canadians might have actually heard of. Walk Off the Earth is an indie pop band from Burlington, Ontario, probably best known for their 2012 cover of Gautier's Somebody That I Used to Know, and their music video where all 5 band members are playing the same guitar. That music video actually went viral in 2012 and has nearly 200 million views on YouTube as of me recording this. They even got to appear in YouTube Rewind 2012, referencing that music video. Well, that was pretty much the end of their notoriety in the USA. In their home country of Canucksland, though, they managed to stay relevant beyond then. The very next year in 2013, their single Red Hands, which by the way is also a really good song, reached number 9 on the Canadian Hot 100, becoming their first and so far only top 10 hit. And in 2015, they released Rule the World, their first single from their 4th album Sing It All Away, and damn, I'm so disappointed that barely anyone outside of Canada got to hear the song because holy crap, it's amazing! Of all 20 songs I'm talking about on this list, Rule the World is easily the best. There's nothing wrong with a simple catchy pop song with typical pop song lyrics about love, relationships, but sometimes a song with a ton of bombast and some amazing self-empowerment lyrics can really elevate a song to a whole nother level. The production makes the song sound so big and epic with the heavy drums, the horns, and Gianni Nicasio and Sarah Black were singing their lungs out in the chorus. The background vocals almost sound like a choir or gospel, which only adds to the song sounding so huge. It has an almost regal sound to it, like it's a song for a king, which only fits better with a song titled Rule the World. I bet King Russell the Right would have loved this to be the song he hears whenever he sits on the throne of Under.
I say I'll rule the world.
When I listen to this song, it makes me feel so big and important, and I can't help but get up and dance around like I'm the center of the world. It almost makes me feel like I could rule the world, breaking all the walls around me, and never let anyone get in my way. It's an awesome, powerful song, and I can't praise it enough. Ironically though, despite the song's title, the song didn't rule anywhere outside of Canada, but hot damn I wish it did. If you could only listen to one of the songs I'm talking about in this video, listen to this one. This song doesn't just rule the world, it rules period. I said earlier that Two Heads was one of the 2 songs on this list that was actually close to charting in the US. Well, this is the other song. In fact, Sound of Your Heart was really close to charting on the Billboard Hot 100. It beat number 5 on the Bubbling Under Hot 100, which is a 25-song extension of the Hot 100. So effectively, it beat number 105 on the Hot 100. If it had charted only 5 positions higher, it wouldn't have been eligible for this list due to Rule 2. While I would say I'm glad that it just managed to scrape by and be eligible for this list, I'm also a little disappointed that it just missed the Hot 100 by a sliver because it is a pretty decent song. While admittedly one of the weaker songs on this list, Sound of Your Heart is still a pleasant song that I do like. Sean Hook sings about a significant other and how they were his whole world. It's a pretty standard pop song with the kind of lyrics you expect from this kind of mid-tempo love pop song. However, what the song is lyrically at its best in my opinion, is how Hook expresses how he misses his significant other. He misses the way they undress, their hair on his chest, their full moon rising, and most importantly, the sound of their heart beating. Between the past tense on the verses and how the song is about him missing them, it seems to be hinting that Sean and his significant other aren't together anymore, and this is on pleading for them to take him back. The bridge with the line, "Tell me now, baby, I'll come running," also implies he's ready to come back if they just say the word. Maybe it's a little cliche, but it's effective. I'm also glad the song doesn't try to beg the significant other to come back or sound overly sad or melodramatic. Maybe if the song had actually made the Hot 100, it could have been heard by a few more American listeners, but alas, it seems that a certain other Canadian pop artist named Sean got the international career instead. Regardless, I'm so glad I could give Sean Hook a spotlight. I'm missing the sound of this song playing.
Clap your hands, stomp your feet.
Those of you who are fans of Joseph Buckley might have heard this song. He did a musical autopsy of it back when it was actually popular in early 2013. While he didn't have anything positive to say about it because, well, making fun of pop music is what he does, I'm here to have some positive stuff about Stompa by Serena Ryder. I think what surprised me most about the song is how it doesn't really sound like a typical pop song. It's definitely the least poppiest song on this list. It's essentially a blues rock song with electric guitars, thumping drums which almost sound like Queen's Will Rock You, and minor key. The song even has an intro that starts pretty slow before the tempo speeds up a little and the first verse starts. You really wouldn't expect a song like this to be a song on pop radio, and yet, it was a top 10 hit in Canada, peaking number 8 on the Canadian Hot 100. Yeah, a blues rock song would get top 10 hit in 2013. I expect the song to be playing on indie rock radio, not pop radio. I mean, I know indie music was pretty popular around the time thanks to bands like Fun, Mumford & Sons, The Lumineers, and Up Monsters and Men, etc. But even compared to them, it's still something you expect pop listeners to latch onto, but they did. Of course, Serena Ryder does have some songs that are a little poppier, like Heavy Love and What I Wouldn't Do, the latter of which was also a Canadian Hot 100 top 10 song. The best comparison I can make for her music is Sarah Bareilles, a name pop listeners will recognize, but she has a little more credit with the adult contemporary crowd. This song was actually nominated for Single of the Year at the 2013 Juno Awards. For those who don't know, the Juno Awards are basically the Canadian Grammy Awards. Unfortunately, it lost to Call Me Maybe. Personally though, I think it should have won. Another noteworthy thing about it is that despite having a slow tempo, it is a song that does make me wanna stomp on my feet described in the chorus, at least once the intro ends. I made the Queen We Will Rock You comparison earlier, it's all the more fitting here. Maybe its lyrics are a bit dumb with simply telling you to clap at your hands and stomp at your feet when you're busy less getting you down, but still, for a borderline blues rock song chart on the Canadian Hot 100 and it'd be a top 10 hit, that's pretty remarkable. Go give it a listen.
But I see your true colors shining through.
Last 3 songs, and here we got a song that I think might be my most controversial pick for this list. So a little backstory. This song is a cover of the Cyndi Lauper song of the same name, recorded by a group of Canadian artists who went by Artists Against. This song was intended to raise awareness about bullying and cyberbullying. It was released in 2012 during Bullying Awareness Week, which takes place in Canada during 1 week in mid-November, with all proceeds of the song being donated to Kids Help Phone, which is a Canadian charitable organization that counts kids requiring mental health services. The artists lending their voice to this cover are Fifi Dobson, Walk Off the Earth, Jacob Hogard from Headley, all of whom I've already talked about on this list, Alyssa Reed, whom I'll be talking about a song of hers later on this list, Cardinal Offishall, who Americans might remember from his 2008 song Dangerous featuring Akon, Pierre Bouvier from Simple Plan, and Lights. Now look, I know there are some people who don't like these charity collaboration songs, mostly because they just see a self-promotion for the participating artists. Plus, instead of having a new song being written, they're almost always covers, including this one. And funny enough, this isn't even the first time a bunch of Canadian artists got together for a charity song. In early 2010, a bunch of Canadian artists got together and did a cover of Kanon's Waving Flag to raise money for the earthquake in Haiti that year. That cover actually had number 1 on the Canadian Hot 100 and won the 2011 Juno Award for Single of the Year. Anyway, getting back to this cover of True Colors, I'm probably going to raise some eyebrows by saying this, but this is a really great cover. Not only that, I think it's even better than the original Cyndi Lauper version. Now, don't scroll down to the comments just yet, please try to hear me out first. The original Cyndi Lauper song, though I wouldn't call it bad, does have some problems with it. For starters, I really don't feel like it hits crescendo that it should. I feel like the song should hit a little harder on the final chorus. It's a song about being proud of your true colors and not being ashamed of them. It also doesn't help that Cyndi Lauper singing throughout most of the song is pretty limp, and I feel like she should be projecting herself more. Cyndi Lauper is actually a pretty good singer, so I'm honestly surprised how her singing doesn't sound anywhere near as robust as it should be. Not to mention that I'm also not a fan of her syncopated singing either. I really don't feel like it fits the song's content. The Artists Against version of the song, however, fixes all of those problems. All the artists here, with the exception of maybe Lights, all have much stronger voices and project themselves much better. The song has a much better crescendo building up to the final chorus, and all the singing is done without syncopation, which I think makes the song sound better. For an anti-bullying song, it actually sounds like it's trying to stand up for itself and show its true colors. It sounds very courageous, like it's standing up to bullies. It really does elevate itself from the limpness of the original. Even the addition of a rap verse by Cardinal Offishall I think fits perfectly on the song. I feel like it makes sense to have a rapper in addition to a bunch of pop singers to show this isn't just a thing exclusive to them. Cardinal isn't the best Canadian rapper they could have gotten, but I guess Classify was too busy or declined to appear on it. I can imagine the song actually giving inspiration and hope to a victim of bullying. In fact, that was probably the intent here, due to the fact that, like I said before, this song came out during Bullying Awareness Week. Not only that, but it also came out about a month after, certain infamous incident regarding bullying in Canada. Trigger warning for suicide and bullying. On September 7, 2012, a teenage girl named Amanda Todd from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, uploaded a video on YouTube titled My Story, Struggling, Bullying, Suicide, Self-Harm, where through flashcards, she shared her story about being bullied, both in real life and online. I'm not going to talk about exactly what happened to her because it's a very sad and shocking story, but if you really are curious to hear her story if you don't already know it, I'm going to leave a link to the original video in the description. On October 10, 2012, about a month after the video was released, Amanda took her own life. She was 15 years old. After this happened, the video went viral and the news began covering the story. This wasn't even just relegated to Canada. All over the world people began to talk about this. It also began to spark a conversation about the severe effects that bullying can have on youth, and even lead them to take their own lives like Amanda Todd did. Her suicide was one of the major events that inspired the creation of this cover. While I would have still liked this cover even if Amanda Todd hadn't taken her life, it might not even exist if not for it. And for that, I feel compelled to take a moment of solidarity. Not just for Amanda Todd, but for all the kids and teens who have taken their lives due to bullying and cyberbullying. I just can't help but respect this cover True Colors even more because of that. Again, even without the context of Amanda Todd, I still think this is a great cover, but knowing about the events that led to the cover's existence really makes me appreciate it more. Hopefully now you understand why this song deserves to be on this list. And yeah, it's a little awkward that Jacob Hogard, who, like I mentioned before, was found guilty of sexual assault, is on this anti-bullying song. As many of you know though, I'm a firm believer in separate art from the artist, and I'm able to look past that and still say this is a great song. I know that it might be considered heresy to say that I like this more than Cyndi Lauper's version, but like the song says, don't be afraid to let them show your true colors. And my true colors say, this cover is the best version of the song I've heard. It's fantastic. Don't be afraid to listen to it.
You want the good life, you can have it all. House on the hill, baby, you can have it all.
Okay, let's move on to a lighter song now. Just like Danny Fernandez Fantasy, here's another artist trying to play in the camp of male R&B singers during the turn of the decade. JRDN, or Jordan, not sure how you pronounce that, got his start at Canadian Idol before snagging a record deal in 2007. Unfortunately, his career is pretty limited, even here in Canada. None of his singles from his debut album No Dress Code charted at all, and he never managed to get a charting song again after 2013. Thankfully though, his second album, I Am JRDN, gave us 3 charting singles, the highest charting of which was You Can Have It All. Overall, it's a pretty simple but effective R&B song where JRDN, just like Bruno Mars and That's What I Like, sings about buying his girl all the expensive things she could possibly want. A house on the hill, a fast car, an island, a 5-star hotel booking, and anything else she wants. While I might be tempted to joke that he can't be that rich since his career pretty much fizzled out after 2011 and he was only popular here in Canada, for what it is, You Can Have It All is a pretty effective track. JRDN definitely does come off as a ladies' man here, as he's willing to let his girl spend his money till it's gone, and he even says that he can have all the girls, but he's got his one baby. Yeah, it's a cliche line, but it's definitely sweet and certainly better than R&B singers or rappers bragging about getting any girl they want and are having multiple girls fall in love with them. It may not be the most original song, but it does what it's set to do well and result in a nice little ladies' man jam. You want some underrated Canadian songs? You can have it all.
We are stars and we are open-hearted. We are lovers. We are into love.
Here we are at the final song on this list. You know, it's kind of funny that this final song sort of brings the list full circle. We Are Stars is another song with a bit of a nostalgic feeling to it, though not for the same reasons as Two Heads. It's a song about two young lovers looking at their lives and imagining what's still left for them. There's a lot of very positive sentiment to the way they see down the road. Even if your heart gets broken, you can't think of giving up because someone still loves you. They always find their way back every time and try again with someone new. You keep persevering through and keep on dreaming even when it's hard. There's something sentimental about looking back on your past, but also looking forward to the future and imagining what's still left to come. And even though things don't always go the way they're planned, it seems like you're at a loss, there's always more to come. The acoustic guitar and whistling melody on the pre-chorus also gives it that sentimental nature. It manages to sound youthful, yet not super naive. On some level, this song could be seen as a sequel source to Two Heads. If the girl called Coleman Hell in the morning, they won a day and didn't go well, they should be willing to accept and try again, perhaps with someone new. You can't always expect things to go right the first time. And while I could nitpick that the song is a bit repetitive due to its lack of a bridge, and the post-chorus just being a bunch of oh sounds, it's still pleasant enough for me to look past. I also love the fact that the song is a duet. Virginia DeVegas and Alyssa Reed are both great choices to work off one another here. While this isn't the Alyssa Reed song I would have liked to include on this list, unfortunately, since Alone Again was technically a hit in the UK, being number 2 on the UK singles chart, I couldn't put it on here. She's not the artist I'd expect for this kind of wistful acoustic song, but yet she manages to sound great here, handling the pre-chorus by herself and singing the chorus and post-chorus with Virginia DeVegas. Being that this was her second biggest song after Alone Again, Virginia DeVegas' number 1 biggest song, and top 20 hit in Canada, I'd say deserve that spot. I'm built for loving this song. And that's all 20 songs. I hope to any of my non-Canadian viewers, I piqued your interest in a few Canadian pop songs that you've never heard before. I'm always glad to introduce my Yankee friends to some underrated Canadian media, whether it's cartoons or music. Of course, there are still some Canadian songs I didn't include here. Even with this being a 20 song list instead of a 10 song list, I still had to make some sacrifices. So in the description below, I've included a link to a Spotify playlist I've created, containing all 20 songs from this video, plus several more Canadian songs that were contenders for this list but didn't quite make it for one reason or another. Feel free to give a listen if you're interested. I'd also recommend you go and check out some other songs from the artists I talked about here besides the one song of theirs I chose for this list. Tyler, Shaw, and Dan Telefsky have plenty of other great songs too. I listed some of them by name here. I could have included a few more songs by them if it wasn't for the one song per artist rule. Honestly, I could do a second video discussing 20 more Canadian pop songs I like. In fact, I actually want to give an honorable mention to a Canadian song that I wanted to put in this list, but didn't.
Give me one more chance before we crash and burn.
Crash and Burn was the 5th single from Filipino-Canadian singer Elisa Estrada's self-titled debut album. While it wasn't the best performing single on the album, it, as well as another single for the album called Poison, are the two songs from it that I most remember hearing on Canadian radio in 2009. While Poison was more of an upbeat dance pop song, Crash and Burn is more of a slower pop song where Elisa Estrada begs on her knees for X to forgive her and take her back before they crash and burn. I think what I like most about the song is that despite being a down-your-knees post-breakup song, it doesn't sound all that sad. In fact, the major key, moderate tempo, singable melody, and little pieces of pop production really keep the song from sounding overly melodramatic or depressing. Like Beautiful You Are, it manages to strike a perfect balance of sounding not too peppy but also not too downbeat. It really pulls off the tone of being a begging your ex to stay song, while at the same time still sounding like a pop listeners wouldn't get bored by. It's also yet another song in this video that reminds me of another song. This time, We Belong Together by Mariah Carey. And while Elisa Estrada obviously isn't as amazing of a singer as Mariah Carey, she is still definitely talented. To those of you who thought that Jealous I Ain't With It should have been eligible for this list because of Rule 2, consider Crash and Burn to be its replacement. Now, the reason why I ultimately didn't put the song on the list is because Elisa Estrada's debut album doesn't seem to be legally available anymore. It's not on iTunes or Spotify, and I know it wasn't those places at one point. Elisa Estrada's other two albums are on there. I don't know if there's some sort of rights issue or label issue that caused her debut album to be pulled, but not their other two albums. It's really weird. Even all the music videos of the songs from her debut album were deleted from her Vivo channel on YouTube. Thankfully though, I was still able to watch the music video for Crash and Burn on the web archive. I'm gonna put a link to it in the description below as well, so you're still able to listen to it. You can also find the music videos to a couple other songs from her debut album on two of her label's channels, including the one for Poison. Hopefully, Elisa Estrada's debut album will become legally available again in the future. If you happen to know why it was pulled from legal release, please tell me why in the comments. I'd also like to know, what are some of your favorite songs by Canadian artists? Do you like any songs I picked? Do you have disagreements? Let me know down below. And if you're not Canadian and you have heard any of these songs before, let me know as well. Despite this video's title, I'm sure there's some Americans out there who have heard these songs. I have a feeling I'm gonna get a couple of comments saying, I'm American and I've heard X song. Good for you. To my Canadian viewers who are still comfortable being wished a Happy Canada Day, Happy Canada Day. To everyone else, Happy July 1st. See you later, eh?